There it is. Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Verona Township Council for Monday, the 21st of April, 2025. Clerk, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act compliance statement?
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date were included in the public meeting notice, along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information. Said notice and meeting agenda was posted in the municipal building and sent to the official newspapers of the township, the Verona City Grove Times, and the Star Ledger at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and handouts can be viewed online at veronanj.org/council meetings. A public comment period will be held in the order it's listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland.
Here.
Councilwoman McGrath.
Here.
Councilman Roman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Present.
Mayor Tamboro.
Here.
Mayor also present tonight is Township Manager Kevin O'Sullivan, Township Attorney Brian Aloya, and Deputy Township Manager Michael Kraus, CFO Jennifer Mascara, myself, Municipal Clerk Jennifer Kiernan.
Thank you. Just to note, Councilman Roman is on. I just don't know if he heard his voice.
I saw his mouth.
Okay. Yeah, I saw his mouth.
Oh,
All right. Everybody, please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
oh no.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, universal. Thank you. Just for the mayor's report, a couple quick items. So everybody had a joyous Easter and Passover. Before that week, the Verona Environmental Commission met, discussed various items, including upcoming cleanups, the highly successful native plant sale that is no longer accepting orders, but it has been a huge success, and winners of the poster contest that will be recognizing at the next meeting. So if everybody is able to come to that meeting to see the amazing posters that were made by our students in the school district. The planning board is meeting this Thursday. And finally, happy birthday to Councilman Roman.
Thank you.
Say that again so I can say that again so I don't work.
He said thank you. Go ahead, Alex, say something just so we can.
Is this working? Can you hear me okay?
Everyone put up to.
Okay.
All right. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Coltrane.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilman Roman, happy birthday to you. I always enjoy birthdays. They come quick nowadays. On the agenda really is April 26th, this Saturday is the drug take back day. And I just checked to see your boxes in the hallway of Town Hall. And we went to a kickoff meeting last week and the DEA was there and they were talking about how many really people, young children go into medicine cabinets and, the elderly leave their medicine around and children can take them. They don't know what they are. So please make a good effort that have the citizens in the town and they're conscientious to do the drug back day on Saturday the 26th. Hopefully you get a very good response. That being said, on Saturday, April 26th, also at the Turtleback Zoo, sensory family morning, 8 a.m. To 10 a.m. And the zoo is going to be a little quiet. They're going to try to get interactive with the various animals in here, what they have to say. And children will have a great day. Also on April 27th, 11 to 3 p.m., Earth Day at the Environmental Center, which is 621 B Eagle Rock Avenue in Roseland. Saturday, May 3rd from 8:30 to 4 p.m. is a Household Hazardous Waste Day, 99 Bradford in Cedar Grove. And then Saturday, May 17th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. again at 99 Bradford is the computer electronic day. And hopefully if you have anything hanging around, and I know I do, so hopefully we can get it to Bradford Avenue on that particular day. Any questions, comments, or anything like that that you've done?
Any questions for our companies?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Have a great week.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you may recall, the budget was introduced by the Township Council on March 17th and subsequently advertised as required by law in the March 24th edition of the Star Ledger, the official newspaper of the Township, along with the notice of the hearing time and location pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-5 and 6. Resolution E1A allows for the 2025 budget to be read by title. I request that at this time the council pass this resolution.
Do I have a motion? Motion made by the deputy mayor, is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Councilwoman McGrath. Any discussion just on E1A, which should be procedurally the budget? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, the 2025 municipal budget passes, that will be read by title, it passes 5-0. The resolution will be number 2025-080.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now is the time for the public hearing and adoption of the 2025 municipal budget. Madam Clerk, would you please outline the procedures for the public?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on the 2025 municipal budget, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. If you're attending in person, please raise your hand and be acknowledged before approaching the lectern. When you're recognized, state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There could be no cross dialogue during this public portion. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and/or questions. And it's open.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we're open for discussion on the budget. Right. There are no comments from members of the public. I will close public hearing. Do any member of the council have any comment?
Yes, I just want to thank our CFO and our township manager and the entire staff for a great budget process. I think we're really starting to get very accurate and our planning, and there's a lot of good things in this budget to address some longstanding items. Obviously, our capital plan will be essential that goes along with this, and I look forward to those conversations in the upcoming weeks. I do think we're doing a good job getting grants to help offset costs. I still will reiterate what I've said in the past, that we need to continue to look towards ways to increase our ratables, so that we can alleviate cost, tax increases on residents. Increasing ratables is essential, and I look forward to really get into some of that as we talk about downtown redevelopment. But I'm happy to support this budget for this cycle. Thank you.
Just make a couple comments. Once again, thank you to the entire municipal team, central administration, but also every department head who this process started in the prior calendar year. And everybody really thought through on what they needed and what were want to haves, need to haves, and the budget is constructed in such a manner as to address those items. The council obviously is constrained on the things budget cap that we can exceed on our operating budget. And in recent years, inflation has well exceeded that budget cap by sometimes 5 or 5 percentage points. Which means that serious decisions have to be made by our administration, our council, as far as what services can we offer, what can we offer better. And we have made some wise decisions over the years as far as doing shared services agreements for things like our municipal courts, moving to the health department with Bloomfield and County Health Department. And I'm hoping that those discussions continue as we find more space for programming and things like that. But once again, not everybody got everything they needed. And certainly not everybody got everything they wanted. And that is one of those situations that we have to understand whenever we pass a budget, that it is the tough decisions that have to be made. For the public's knowledge, the operating budget is the first part. We also have capital planning that we do every year, not only for the current year, but also the out years as well. And all of the requests that come in, whether it be for things like athletic fields, which a lot of people are here for tonight, or our emergency services, or clean drinking water. We just had the ribbon cutting for our well on Lynn Drive, which was a multi-million-dollar project to provide the updated wells to filter out the PFAS from the water. All of these things play in, and it's once again a decision-making process that's perhaps one of the two most important things that Township Council does. The first being hiring a township manager, and the second every year taking those manager recommendations and evaluating and determining what we actually have to move forward. And it's something that we have to share and really decide what we're going to spend this year and in future years. So I appreciate everybody's involvement in that, and I appreciate the members of the public who have made comments on those items as well. It all matters, and it's all taken into consideration by the council as we make these very serious decisions for the future of this ballot. There's no further comment. Madam Clerk, to call the roll, please.
Councilwoman,
Actually, we need to move
oh, sorry, yeah.
E1C. Somebody please move the budget. E1C.
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilwoman McGrath. Councilman Roman, do you second that motion?
I second it.
Okay, thank you. There's no further discussion on E1C. Madam Clerk, do call the roll.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, the 2025 municipal budget passes a vote 5-0. Resolution will be numbered 2025-081.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Sarno, Mr. O'Sullivan, and everybody else. And we are Finance and Government for all right. Next up, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two presentations scheduled for tonight's meeting. The first one on the agenda is the Linden Avenue presentation. Just to give a little bit of background on the Linden Avenue process, the township was awarded a grant for technical assistance and temporary demonstration for traffic control measures and pedestrian safety measures for Linden Avenue. This process started last year, in which there were a number of recommendations. There were 3 different speed control measures that were suggested by a state planning agency. They were implemented in the field to demonstrate how each of those speed control measures would fare in real life. There were pre and post speed data collections which were done. There were recommendations, and there was actual practical input and surveys which we collected input from the residents. There was a great feedback. Actually, the state, the NJTPA came back to compliment the township on the amount of feedback that we received. In most towns, they typically see about 40 to 50 responses. I think they checked in excess of 700 responses in the township. So a lot of feedback, a lot of comments from school-age kids and pedestrians to families to senior citizens to all sorts of community members. So there's a lot of feedback that we received from the public. There was an actual walkthrough audit with the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Committee and members of the public, in which we were able to actually walk Linden Avenue, observe the speed control measures in place at the time, and take real-time input from that walking audit. There was also then follow-up discussions with the Neighborhood Traffic Safety Committee. We have a few representatives tonight that are with us tonight for the presentation. At the end of all of that input and that public input the task that Boswell was assigned was then to come up with speed control measures that would try to meld all the input that was received through the community, some good, some bad, very positive, some looking for other suggestions, but the recommendations that are proposed for the Linden Avenue improvements are what Boswell will be presenting tonight. Having said that, Mr. Tenkate is here tonight to present the Linden Avenue project.
So Tenkate, welcome. Good to see you. Folks.
Welcome, good to be back here. It's been all right. So yeah, this has been a process. Back in the beginning, we applied for a DOT local aid grant for Linden Avenue, and in 2023, at the end of 2023, we received a grant of $318,712 for the construction, and basically you have 2 years to have a contract award. So that puts us to by October of this year, we have to have a contract awarded. So in the meantime, the grant came through for the study of the traffic calming measure, basically the speed control measures for Linden Avenue. So we were kind of holding off on the design of for the DOT on the street. We got through the process of the study with the TPA as well as the residents. And we're at the point where we have to finalize the plans. DOT has to review, and then we have to get it out of the bid. So we're down to making some final decisions. And we're going to give you a feel of what this, it's probably 80–90% done. What we're going to do, there may be some changes that we all agree to, but this is basically the result of the study, the input, and where we're at right now. So coming off of I'll start at the far view end, because that's where most of the study took place, because it's nearest the school, and that's where a lot of concerns are. So as you come off of Farview Avenue, we have we're going to put striped parking on the south side of Linden Avenue, which when you have, so basically you're going to take a whole lane out for striped parking, which by itself will narrow the road and slow down traffic to a certain extent. So we have a line to guide the right off of Farview, a line to guide them past the parked cars striping on that side. And you basically proceed down. The symbols in the road are will be symbols painted on the road that says it's a shared lane. It's an international symbol, a shared lane between bikes and pedestrians and cars. We get down a little bit further. This is you see feedback on this. What's called a chicane, where the road does jog a little bit, and it's a traffic calming measure. There was during a demonstration, there was quite a different type of chicane where we actually had parking in the middle of it, and we decided that was not. We didn't get so much good feedback on that one, so we decided to make it smaller. And again, these where I show orange here, where you see that, those are these are painted. They're not. It's not curved. So if somebody wants to change their mind on it or whatever, paint's easier to take out from curb and whatever. So as Kevin pointed out, we're going to, on this whole process, we're going to crawl before we run. So we're trying the first measures, and we'll see how this works, and we'll proceed with other measures as we go forward to other streets. And it's all part of what the township has adopted, the complete streets policy. That's all in accordance with that. As we move further down the road, we come to Grove Street signal. Now, it's our understanding the county is going to eventually improve that signal. So we basically haven't done too much there, but just ADA compliant crosswalks on a lot of programs. We can further down. We go to where the bridge crosses Peckman Creek, and at the bridge we have quite a wide area, roadway pavement area. So we're going to put a painted island in the middle We can decide if we want to put a planter there. We have to decide on maintenance, what's the best way for maintenance and plowing. But it's an opportunity to, again, calm the traffic down, narrow the road a little bit, and keep the cars at a reasonable speed, hopefully the speed limit.
So that's painted, that's not curving.
That's painted, yes.
Was there any thought putting curving in?
The issue there becomes pinning the curbing into the bridge deck. It's not impossible to be done, but again, we thought we'd try painting before we tried anything more elaborate at that point.
And also there, I believe you're doing a little bit of a painted or, and are you doing an actual curb extension on the sidewalks there? Because I know there was some feedback from the survey that people felt the cars were really close to the sidewalk, and I was just looking at this picture. I think there's a little bit of a
Yeah,
I just-
we're be good for striping off the curb to keep the cars off the curb,
Right.
a foot or two, once you get there. We can, well, yeah. We'll make sure those dimensions are properly on the plan. Thank you for reminding me of that. So we come to the next couple intersections where we're gonna, and again, the TPA had recommended either curb or plastic bollards. The demonstration project had plastic bollards, but we found that some of the trucks were having difficulty making the turns when it got narrowed down. So we're gonna start with painted curb bump outs and narrow the crosswalk. So again, to try to slow the traffic down. Show orange on just for presentation purposes, where we can pick any color we want. It's only paint. So, but again, as you can see, those intersections are narrowed down. They're meant to slow the traffic down and provide a crosswalk for the pedestrians. Now, the rest of the street going up to the end, we basically, the intersections stay the same with new crosswalks and handicap ramps. There are a couple areas where we're gonna look to see if we can have crosswalks across Linden where there aren't none now, but there's a reason they're not there now, because they're to get it ADA compliant and in the right spot. There's either catch basins in the way, or there's telephone poles or fire hydrants, and so we have to refine that right now. But the rest of the intersections are just improved intersections with complete the ADA curb ramps and sidewalk and striping. We did look at raised intersection platforms. At this point, the first demonstration projects that we would have to do a complete survey, topographic survey of the intersection, because it involves drainage and involves getting the proper slopes for ADA. So at this point, we decided we were going to raise the intersection. That's a possibility for another plan in place. And again, once this is done, we'll evaluate this to see how it's working, if we can improve it at all, and lessons learned for the next project we do. That's it in a nutshell.
Mr. Sullivan's put in place that trees are marked for removal. We are going to offer them trees as for.
Sure, the final design of what trees are being removed versus those that are scheduled for trimming. The intention is to try to protect and preserve as many of the trees as possible. We will be reviewing this further with Shade Tree Commission and reviewing any tree that may potentially need to come down due to sidewalk issues. We'll be reviewing that with Shade Tree Commission, and we'll be preserving as many as we can. Additionally, I know that they will have some tree trimming that they are requesting on the Linden Avenue trees as well.
Yeah, our concern in marking these is what to do with the tree roots that uplift the sidewalk and also push the curb out. So
And there are quite a few on that stretch.
so right now it's in bloom and it's a beautiful street, but you know, we have to also look at the safety of the sidewalk. So we'll work with the Shade Tree Commission and follow their lead on it.
Are most of these trees that are marked for removal, are they because of, for line of, to improve line of sight? Or is it?
No, it's mostly
Maybe
for,
light.
uplift and where the tree roots are in relation to the curb and sidewalk. Again, we'll, if the Shade Tree Commission has other ideas how to do it, I mean, other towns who've lifted the sidewalk slabs and cut the roots down. But you need professionals to do that, so, we'll follow their lead in what they wanna do there.
One other question, on your second page, the corner of Grove Avenue and Linden. I know on the upper part you added the parking lane along the south side. That corner there. Is it possible on the east side of Grove Avenue? Is it possible to have 3 lanes there so that in the morning there's a left turn lane? I know it's very narrow, obviously Grove is wider, but because I know in the morning, it's probably for like a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. That there's a few, sometimes it goes back to the Beckman River. Because a lot of people are trying to go right to the Beckman Brown for drop off. But is it possible to speed it? And my concern is this, if you make the lane going eastbound, coming down Linden, crossing Grove, is that too narrow for cars to turn off of Grove and onto Linden?
Well, since this is a county intersection, they would have to weigh in on that third lane. And, we're trying
Linden is a town.
It's pretty narrow there.
And I would, since we were trying to minimize any change at this point, because we know like planning on something in the future. So, we can bring it to their attention and see what they say. I'll look at it first, engineering wise, see if they're lane width, if you get down to 11, 10-foot lanes, it's really tight stuff. And then, the corner is pretty tight to make this change.
All right, thanks.
Maybe no, we'll check it out.
Kevin, for the stall parking, there's no, you don't have an ordinance as far as, parking difference in your feet from the driveway. Because do we have an ordinance that can enforce the stall parking on Linden Avenue, or would we need to update an ordinance to ordain that as stall parking so that can be enforced? Because there's going to be, potentially be some concerns there.
Well, the ordinance would be parking on one side of the street. You're talking about within the stripes stall. To enforce it, we would probably need to review the ordinance and
Whatever we
consider
have
some updates.
on South Prospect with Davey,
Right.
look it up here. Yeah. It's just unusual to have it in the residential neighborhoods. So. All right. Any other questions from?
Yeah, I just wanted to express a question. May I, Mayor?
Please.
So during the course of this survey, and I'm sorry to be the contrarian here, but I did see a lot of just profoundly negative feedback from the public about most of the traffic calming measures. The only one that seemed to really have any level of public acceptance was narrowing the lanes over the bridge. Other than that, the commentary I saw was that the traffic calming measures actually made the road substantially more dangerous. It was described as an obstacle course. And just a lot of the public feedback I saw really just implied that this was not a good idea. And there was a lot of happiness when a lot of the temporary measures came down. Do we have anything to the contrary? Do we have an argument that this actually worked, or are we just sort of assuming that it's, that it was a success?
Councilman, thank you. I think the answer to that is that the NJTPA, which is the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, who was the technical assistance guiding force on this project, they were involved in every step of the process, from creating the survey to making the recommendations on the improvements to collecting the survey data. And they do have a final recommendation. It's in its draft form. We haven't received the final version of it, but the recommendations that they've put forward are what is reflected in Mr. Tenkate's presentation. It did include what was considered successful. All 3 traffic calming measures were considered successful. The popularity of the chicanes was certainly questionable, but the recommendation that they did end up making was a lesser modified version, which is reflective of Boswell's drawings. That's instead of a full car width length of a chicane, it's only approximately 4 feet into the curve. So it's a less aggressive version of the chicane. Similarly, the general feedback that that NJTPA collected from the extended crosswalks was, while it was effective, I think they also they recommended those because they felt that the general feedback supported that, in a collective review of all the feedback from public surveys, observations, technical observations, traffic safety committee. So I think it's kind of a three-pronged answer, that one was very successful and popular, one was successful, had somewhat mixed reviews, but they did find it warranted and recommended. And then that third one was the chicanes, which were both effective, but then also required some modifications to address the concerns that were raised from the public and the neighbor traffic safety committee.
I think the obstacle course piece was from during the test run. They alternated the parking on both sides of the street, and you had to go back in. That is not in this plan.
Correct.
And part of the problem was the residents also didn't follow that parking, so it was even
Yeah.
more difficult at that point. So I think as far as the piece between Grove and Linden, I think probably the more dangerous piece was taken out, or the more inconvenient piece, and now all the parking's on one side of the street. So I think I'm okay with that as a happy medium between what we have and what we should have. But really, in order to slow that traffic down, what they offered was probably the optimal solution, but it's also not a user-friendly solution.
Right.
I do think that there is kind of a disparity sometimes in the opinion of traffic engineers versus the opinion of drivers. I mean, this is something in this country that when we have a problem with a road, we add more traffic controls to it. And I look at a lot of international locations, for example, and they, tend to try and simplify down the road design and, let sort of natural instincts to drive an appropriate speed for the roadway, sort of take precedence. I just am not willing to set aside the very substantial amount of negative public feedback that I saw on this project. I don't feel that it's just a full speed ahead, we're sure it'll be fine in the long run. The only traffic measure that I would support in this would be the paint to narrow at the bridge. Any of the other alterations to the roadway, I think, actually make the situation worse, not better. So it's my opinion, agree or disagree, but that I think is reflective of public opinion.
Councilwoman McGrath?
Yes, I just want to highlight, I guess, two things in response to that. There is a draft written report that the council received a few weeks ago. Maybe the township manager can recirculate it to everyone, because again, the feedback that we read online is we received 700 pieces of feedback in the actual survey, which was again really tremendous. So I think that would be helpful. But I did want to, the chairman of the Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Committee is here. I was wondering if we could allow him just to make a statement, as we've done with other presentations in the past. Would that be acceptable?
Objections from
Great, thank you very much. My name is Paul Nikowitz, and I just want to quickly get this in there because I sort of wanted to come here and just say my experience with moving to Verona and joining the Traffic and Safety Committee and working with all the township employees has been extremely positive. It's been great cooperation, and it's just very much appreciated. So all the teamwork has been great, and working on this project has been really, really helpful. And it rolled out really, really well. The feedback that we got was from people riding, but also driving, but also pedestrians. And really, the traffic calming is really for the pedestrians, not so much for the drivers. And ironically, the feeling of maybe less safe from a driver perspective slows them down, and that's what makes pedestrians feel safer. And that was the whole point of traffic calming. So as a committee, we went over the proposals that was made and recommended from the traffic assistance, technical assistance program. And a lot of those are not actually in this plan. We're left with a lot of paint. There's some other elements I'd like to see, and hopefully there's still some flexibility to get that in there. The idea of the chicanes was kind of doomed from the start because it didn't have a very good rollout. So I think we should just throw that out there. I actually am pleased to see this one. I wouldn't even call it a chicane, but it's really just a narrow. It's kind of a neck down where we didn't have the room to do the chicanes and it was misunderstood. But the whole point of the idea of the median on the bridge, which seemed to be the most positively received element, is that it narrows the lanes. So cars have to go slower. And that is a kind of a universal approach with traffic calming. And that's what that little chicane will do. That will create a tighter space. People will naturally have to slow down to make that little curve. If it's only paint, I don't know how much that's going to work. You might be better off with a couple cars there, but I'm glad to see that in there. And I'd like to see if we could get some of the other elements in there, like the plastic delineators for the curb extensions. So the curb extensions, again, go a long way in making pedestrians feel safer when they're crossing the street. They don't have to go quite as far, and it forces drivers to make a more of a right angle turn and not make these sweeping turns. And sadly, there's just a lot of pedestrians that are hit actually in the crosswalks because drivers aren't seeing them. I don't want to go too long, but thank you very much. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak a little bit. Again, it's been a great experience. And I look forward to continuing this process because what we learn and implement here on Linden Avenue, now that's going to get repaved, we can experiment and do around other streets in the town to slow things down and help people feel more comfortable and safe. Thank you.
I would encourage any council members to have an individual conversation with Mr. O'Sullivan on these plans, and that can get back to Mr. Tenkate for the final drawings.
Right. And target here is to put the project out to bid.
We're certainly got to get out to bid by, well, I have to get it to the DOT for final approval, which takes 2 months to 6 weeks, and you should bid it June, July.
Time is of the essence. Thank you, Pete.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. O'Sullivan, not sure.
Thank you, Mayor. The next presentation on the agenda for tonight is the Everett Field presentation. Neglia Engineering is here tonight to present. Again, this is a project that we've had a few versions of the concept plan discussed previously with the council. There's been a lot of public input. There have been comments that have been circulated from different interest groups regarding the site plan designs and the different concepts. Neglia has gone back and forth with each of those interest groups and made revisions to the concept plans to the point that they are tonight. This project is also the benefit of a few grants received for the project. There is $750,000 that was received through the NJDEP Jake's Law grant program for the playground and the nearby accessories to the playground. And then there was also an additional $100,000 grant from CDBG for the ADA compliant walking path around the perimeter of the field. The VBSL has also been an active participant, and they've committed to the donation and the construction of the field house behind home plate, restroom, snack bar, field house. But having said that, I'll let Neglia present the current version of the site plan.
Sure. Can you hear me? Apologize, I don't have a colorized version up here. I think it was in your packets. And also, one of which, yes, as like Kevin pointed out, this is what is pretty close to our final version of the Everett Park field based on compiling all the feedback that we received. from our initial presentation as well as, follow-up meetings. The plan, as you have it, as you come in, we've got a new decorative park entry sign near the driveway entrance off of Elmwood Avenue. Similar to the original design, we're redoing that existing gravel and grass parking area with a new porous pavement parking lot to provide a total of 52 striped parking stalls, including 4 ADA parking spaces. Part of the grant for the playground, for the Jake's Law playground, you have to be able to provide adequate parking as well as ADA parking and access. So on the east side of the parking lot, we've got that proposed playground. That playground is going to include ADA inclusive play equipment. The main feature within the center of the playground has the ramping that could be used by someone in a wheelchair. Also, you could also have parents with smaller children that can walk up that ramping. There's the three hexagonal shaped platforms. First one's about 6 inches off the ground, second one a foot, the third one 2 feet. And there's ramps that interconnect those 3 features. There's also a climbing tower there for the older, more adventurous users. The features, that main feature is rated for 5 to 12-year-olds, but it easily can accommodate younger children, provided they were supervised or accompanied by a parent. Also, part of the grant, you have to also include new playground surfacing, so it's new poured in place ADA accessible playground surfacing. There needs to be a quiet area, so that's in the right-hand corner. They call that a cozy spot. It's like a small playhouse type of equipment, as well as a seesaw. Continuing into the park, we've got a new walkway to provide access both to the field as well as to the playground. The walkway continues to the seating areas. It loops the field. There's also, to comply with that playground grant, you have to have a bathroom facility on the property. So we're using the proposed concession stand behind home plate. That's going to have concession stand as well as restroom facility. So that path's basically going to connect the parking lot to the playground, to the seating areas, to the concession stand, to the field, and to the dugouts. The field itself, it's going to be reconstructed grass field. It's going to be regraded so that we pick up more playable area in left field. The increase in the field length will be an extra 20 feet. We go from 165 feet in left field to 185 feet. The original plan, I think we were at 205, so we struck a balance to enlarging that while still preserving as much of the existing steep slopes and vegetation as we could. The field will be regraded with new drainage, new topsoil, sod, irrigation system, as well as a new clay infield. Both the home and the away sides will have new covered roof over style dugouts, the open style dugouts, along with pitching, batting cage enclosures on both sides for both teams. The seating, we've got two new sets of 5-row bleachers on the Elmwood side, as well as additional 3-row bleachers on the left field side to provide ample seating for both home and away teams. On the right field side, we've got the picnic tables, trash receptacles within a concrete patio area to provide additional seating. Along that proposed walkway to and from the field and the concession stand will be some benches to provide additional seating adjacent to the playground as well as along the pathway. New drainage is proposed, for the parking lot. We've got drainage consisting of the porous pavement with, under drain system and a small scale infiltration basin, which is made up of, perforated piping below grade in stone in order to satisfy and meet the, township's ordinance and the DEP requirements for stormwater management. Project will reduce, runoff again and meet all ordinance and NJDEP requirements. We completed soil testing to confirm elevation of groundwater and percolation rates. Everything is in order with respect to the soil testing to allow for this design to function and work properly. Grading and perimeter drainage is proposed for the new concrete walkway in the patio areas. With respect to tree removals, we received comments back from the Verona Environmental Commission as well as shade tree. We've identified on the plans which trees need to be removed. We've identified the sizes and the locations. Part of the plan and the bid spec is going to require the contractor hire a certified arborist as part of his work to evaluate the tree removals in an effort to preserve whatever, as many trees as we can preserve. In cross evaluation with the township's arborists so that collectively we can keep as many trees on the property as possible. With respect to tree replacements, we prepared a final or updated landscape plan. We've got tree plantings on both street sides of the property, both Elmwood Road and Westwood Road, as well as proposed trees to fill in the gaps within the remaining areas of the site. And again, we've got notes within our plans and specs for the final location and the spacings of those tree plantings to be coordinated with shade tree in the township, as well as with our landscape architect within the field as part of the specifications. With respect to the sports lighting, the existing sports lighting is going to be completely upgraded to Musco's new LED lighting system, utilizing the existing light poles on site. We're able to reutilize 2 of the 4 footings. The other 2 footings need to be reconstructed and basically next to the other ones in order to accommodate the proposed additional site amenities and the proposed grading, but we can reuse some of the poles, or at least the majority of the pole. But the top of the fixture is going to be the new LED fixture. New control panel is going to go within the concession building to be able to control the new lighting system. And as part of this contract, or the proposed bid, the footing and the foundation for the proposed concession stand would be built by the park contractor and utilities constructed up to the connection point, so that that building could be taken on by a separate contractor from the BBSL to be able to build that concession stand. All in all, this is a complete project. New parking, new playground to comply with the grant that was received. You've got the pedestrian connectivity to the concession stand and the restroom building and seating. New grass field, new irrigation system, upgraded sports lighting, drainage, decorative entry signs, site amenities, everything is included.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
First, I want to say I'm very happy. I knew when I saw that last plan that we could get a greater distance in left field, so I'm very happy that you pushed it to 185 rather than 165. I got a couple of calls about that, so that I think is a major change. I'm very happy you moved the bullpen back and put the bleachers closer to home plate, because I think, viewing would have been an issue there, trying to look through the bullpen. Question of, the fencing on top of the retaining walls going around. It says it's 4 feet high. Are we using the smaller, because I know a lot of the playgrounds we're doing now up, at Lynn Drive have the smaller holes so they can't climb.
We can specify that.
Okay, I think that would be important there, because obviously, people coming down Westview, if they get to the top of that wall, you never, obviously, kids like to climb, so. I think we should have that there, and in any other areas, it's kind of a uniform thing, our Director of Public Works has been putting in all of our projects, so I'd like to keep things uniform. The driveway area, you said it's, are the parking areas the pervious pavement? Or is it the entire driveway itself? Because I saw the one, note in the Environmental Commission's report about, wear and tear on pervious in the drive aisle.
So the main driveway coming in,
Mhm.
like the whole, the throat coming into the parking lot, that's gonna be standard asphalt paving.
Yes.
But the remainder of the parking lot, the spaces and the driveway is all gonna be done with the porous pavement, which is open graded friction force. It's asphalt, bituminous concrete, so we've used it on other sites. It's a cleaner install, and you get better environmental benefit as far as percolation into the substone if you don't pave it into 3 separate sections, so.
And is there like annual maintenance they have to do on that? They got the packing punch.
It's similar to street cleaning.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is annual maintenance to sweep it and keep that top course clean so that it continues to work. But in addition to the percolation through, we do have catch basins within the parking lot as a fail-safe. So if for some reason maintenance took longer than expected, we're not gonna have an issue with ponding or puddling.
I also want to thank you for adding the walkway from Westview into the field, especially to that playground, because there's a lot of people up in that way that will use it. The location now where the bathroom is gonna go, behind home plate, have we checked the, distance from there to where the main waste is? Do we have the pitch?
Yes.
Are we installing mechanics on that, or?
It's gravity. It's gonna be
Okay, we do gravity
good
flow.
work. The pitch is good, the elevation.
Okay,
No pumps needed.
and lastly, you mentioned lighting controls, where would they be?
They're gonna be in the concession building, so instead of that silver cabinet, it's all gonna be put within the building.
And will we be able to control them remotely? Like, someone leaves them on 11 o'clock at night, and
That's
they do
just,
that now, right?
that's just an app
Okay,
installation as part of it.
okay. It's a
Most
part
of
of
it
that.
has an app.
Good. All right, and that's all. Thank you for your changes and your work on this. It's very good. Good question.
Deputy Mayor took a couple of mine, but I wanted to thank you for taking all the comments from all the different groups and people interested in this project and really coming up with a good plan that I think the community very much gave on.
Mayor, if I could just interject, again, for we touched a little bit on the timing of the Linden Avenue project. The timing for the Everfield project was set up in that this would be included within the 2025 capital budgets, which will be discussed at upcoming meetings. Assuming that we introduce and adopt that in May and June, then it allows us to anticipate bids around that same time frame and have an expected construction schedule of summer into fall. So we can align the construction of this project this year, and hopefully if we can hit the ground running and we don't hit delays with delivery of materials, the project would then be ready for opening day of 2026. So I wanted to present that to the council, that it allows us to include this in capital with the grants, and then also put it out to bid in the next 30 to 45 days. I think we're just about at complete design at this point.
Sooner the better.
Council?
Yeah, so I just have a question. So the VBSL organization, they're gonna build the concession stand, or are we building the concession stand?
So the concession stand.
And the bathrooms? Can you just explain how that's gonna work?
So within the contract, there will be utilities and concrete pad constructed by the general contractor for the field. There are interim milestones that Neglia has recommended within the proposed bid specs, which would have delivery of that as an interim milestone by November 30th, I
We
believe.
put November 30th to have the foundation, the slab, and the utility stub-ups. This way, that could be turned over to the VBSL's building contractor to start construction of that building. This way, because they could do that, some of that work over the winter and just be able to give them, December, January, February, March, 4 months to get that building up at the, while the site contractor is finishing up the site work to kind of line everything up for that end of March completion for your opening day. April.
That is being designed and constructed by others, though, not by the township.
Okay. And I do want to thank the VBSL for that very generous donation to help, bring down the cost for this project. So I do appreciate them. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for the work that's gone into this. I know that the Recreation Advisory Committee is, very interested in this development. There have been discussions about Everett Fields renovation for really decades, but I've been on the committee for 4 years, and it has certainly occupied a lot of our time during those meetings. And so I know that there was feedback from different boards and committees, so I appreciate the efforts that were made to incorporate that feedback and really to make this needed renovation. I also want to thank the VBSL as well for that contribution. I think it's really worthwhile, and I'm looking forward to other items on our agenda this evening as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Everything was, good feedback when we get all those comments and everything from the town and the committees comes together to be a really good project. So we're looking forward to this for you guys and for the BESL.
A really new game.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a real benefit.
All right. Mr. Sullivan, the update.
I'll try to go through the rest of the quickly. Pool construction is still underway. Contractor should be complete early May. You have a number of sewer, wastewater plant and sewer collection projects underway. Our Fairview Avenue well is out to bid. Bids received May 22nd. Claridge Drive, we should be scheduling pre-construction meeting within hopefully the next 30 days, pending IBank approval. Linden Avenue, we discussed earlier. Bloomfield Avenue, the county has begun paving, and they should be providing us an update within the next few weeks. Pickleball and tennis courts are still under construction. We should have them complete in mid to late May. Lakeside Avenue parking lot, the design is nearly complete. We can schedule that for presentation at an upcoming meeting. And the repointing and the town hall facility needs are underway and progressing. Other than that, I'll unless there's questions on any items in the report, I will conclude my report.
So you're really not a fair
Paul won't leave. He has a
I was
game.
gonna go, but
He won't leave.
Any questions for Josh?
So there's reference to the smoke testing that as a report, it's still under review. And it will be circulated to the council. Are we anticipating that in May or? we've been talking about the smoke testing report for a little while, so I'm
So
just curious.
I did get the second version of the draft report last week. I haven't had a chance to review it directly. I did want to make sure that all the previous comments have been addressed, but once I do have that, I will distribute that to the council and we can discuss that in a little bit greater detail in May. I would expect, unless there's additional revisions, I would expect that by the end of this week, I'll be able to distribute to the council.
That's really, thank you.
Kevin, just a quick update on the waistline along their went, because there were a couple of emails on it. Any residents along their went that one.
Sure. The needs that were addressed over I think it was the month of December, were some partial collapses of the sanitary sewer trunk line in the easements in those backyards. That immediate need was addressed. However, in doing that work, there was also identified need for an additional manhole. That the actual design and layout of that manhole required a little bit of additional time. That materials have been ordered. We are expecting the additional manhole to be installed within I think the next week and a half. It's expected to resume, and they'll be installing that. We will have Public Works knocking on doors and providing updated notices to each of the residents that are in those immediate areas.
Anything else, Mr. Wasabi?
No, that is it.
Now for council member reports, Deputy Mayor. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be brief. Sustainable Verona has tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. There is an energy efficiency presentation at the Verona Library. It's basically a presentation on what you can do in your home to make your home more efficient. And starting June, your energy rates are going up 17%. So you may want to attend. There could be minor revisions. And there is a company called Ciel, CIEL. For $49, they do an energy assessment on your home. You can go to their website and sign up. They're booked, I think, starting mid-May. If you want to get on their schedule, it is only $49 for Verona residents. So make sure if you go to their website, you click on the Verona link on there. The Chamber of Commerce on Wednesday evening at the library at 6 o'clock will be doing a presentation by Evolve Wellness. If you would like to join their meeting at 6 o'clock. And lastly, on September 26th, since I just bring this up, Verona Park Conservancy is doing a cleanup at Verona Park. I think it usually starts about 9:30, something like that. So you can join them at the park and sign up near the boat club and help clean Verona Park. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Roman.
No report this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Mr. Roman. Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank and congratulate the Verona Police Department and the Multicultural Inclusion Accessibility Advisory Committee and Verona Child, for collaborating on the rollout of the Blue Envelope program. The Blue Envelope program are for individuals on the autism spectrum, so that they can put their important motor vehicle documents in a blue envelope, which helps to notify police officers if they are ever pulled over that this is an individual on the autism spectrum. This was really fantastic that the Verona Police Department has rolled out this program, which was advocated for by Child and MIAC. So this is really a great step forward for our community. So I really appreciate everyone's hard work. The Shade Tree Commission also met since our last meeting. They are actively planning their new plantings in the Civic Center and working with the town administration on that. And they are looking forward towards strategic initiatives, going forward, especially once our capital budgets are passed, for tree plantings and more safety prunings and removals. And I do they do appreciate, they've been involved in many projects, and I'm sure they will look forward to reviewing the Linden Avenue project next. And that's my report. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Councilwoman Hall.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to comment on the ribbon cutting that we were at earlier this evening. It's really positive to see that we're opening the Lynn Drive well, and that we are treating our water, for our residents, and that we've actually gone out to bid for our other well. That is really positive forward steps for our community, to get our water, back online and compliant with both environmental standards. So I was very pleased to be a part of that, and I really want to thank Township Manager Kevin O'Sullivan as well as DPW for all of the work that has gone into that. It was a tremendous effort over these last several years to make that progress. Also, I want to acknowledge that tomorrow night we have a VMAC meeting. There will be a discussion of our 2025 financial and program review, as well as our letter of intent and funding for 2026 programming. So lots of discussions about that. There will also be some appointment of new officers. If you have interest in some of the things that we do in VMAC, you can always Zoom in. Our meetings are virtual, and they are open to the public. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we've definitely done some positive programming this year that I hope residents have had an opportunity to avail themselves of, and certainly the children in our public schools have benefited from them. Next week, we have a Verona Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, where we will be discussing, among other things, recreation program fees. So I do think it's important for residents to be aware of the discussions that we have there. A lot of discussion, as I just said moments ago, has gone into our fields, the pool, and others. This upcoming meeting, they're going to be discussing programming and programming fees. So I want to thank the residents that serve on that committee, and I'm looking forward to joining them for that discussion. Also, I do just want to acknowledge for residents who may be members of the Catholic faith, the recent passing of Pope Francis. It is very upsetting to a number of folks, and I just want to offer my sincere condolences and sympathy. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. At this time, we'll open for public comment on any item anybody wishes to bring forth to council. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public presentation?
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing in by phone, please press *9. If you're attending in person, please raise your hand before approaching the lectern. Once you're recognized, state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel, and addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. There'll be no cross dialogue during this public portion. After everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and/or questions.
In council chamber.
Go.
My daughter's actually up watching that. Paul Petrangeli, Verona, New Jersey. Alright, I'll be quick because as we all know. Alright, the wells, huge thing. I think that's awesome that happened. That's really big for our town. Now Everett Field, I think that is amazing that we finally pushed that through. I think it was 2 years ago. The same softball team I'm waiting to go play with sat right here and told you guys how bad we needed this project. I think it's a long time coming. I think the new plan is awesome. I think everything looks good. But of course, you know I'm gonna have stuff to say. So on the field, we're doing a baseball/softball field. So on that type of field, it should be flat all the way across with the removable mound, they state. With that removable mound, on line 53 is where we pay for that removable mound. Line 56, we're paying for 3 other pitching mounds, 3 other pitching covers, it says. So I was just wondering about that. But also it should be dead flat. We have a 0.2 raise from home plate to the pitching mound to second base, where on all other fields, it's dead flat. So it goes from 452.50 to 452.70 at the mound. that should be flattened. Also, the wall, the stepped paver wall going around the site. It's, 11 feet, some places it steps like 1 or 2 feet here or there, but behind that wall, we have contours that start at maybe, I think it was 75, something like that, and they go down to 475 or 275. There's a 10-foot slope from the top of the street and the neighboring properties to the top of the wall at some places. So that water right now has nowhere to go. It's going to gather, and that's what ruined Everett right now. That's our problem right now. That's why I put it in. So if we could get like maybe yard drains behind that, some perforated pipe, run those drains down, connected into the system, that would save Everett for as long as we can. We need to save this field. A fence around the infield, where the fence that runs around the infield, I believe should be on a curb, maybe at least for the first 10-15 feet, because you only have about a 6-inch difference from the bleachers and the walkway to the top of the pitcher's mound, to the top of the field. So you get a heavy rainstorm, that stuff will back up. So I believe you have a curved wall there now, or a curved wall, which is there now, that would stop the water from the walkways reaching the field. Because that is our biggest problem at Everett, is water, and water getting to the fields. So the more things you can do to stop that water reaching the walkways from behind the wall and then reaching the field from the walkways. The parking, Elmwood is definitely going to overflow now with parking, so I just believe we should add some signs, parking one side of the street only, no parking on the other side. There's a yard drain right behind second base. That yard drain is going to be buried around 6 inches. That yard drain is now going to be buried under clay and the dirt and stuff like that. Would it be smarter to move that maybe 3-4 feet back into the grass where the pitch is lower? The grading you can see down is also 8 inches lower in the grading, so then the water drains better. Yeah, flatten. That's it. Look at that. 45 seconds. And have we looked into any school grants or anything like that? Because I know we talked about you guys get grants and everything. I'm not going to wait for any answers, but you know how I am for the schools. Let's try to get as many grants as we can, and let's get the money to the schools and the police department. 30 seconds. I'm out of here. 3-0. I think she got a hit. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ryan?
Good evening, folks. Kevin Ryan, Verona, New Jersey. Actually, I'm here tonight as one of the coordinators for the Alliance Club of Verona's Spring White Cane Appeal. You should have all hopefully received a letter in the mail. And one reason why I decided to get up tonight and speak was because when we went to our bulk mail vendor, they told us that we actually lost about 200 addresses in Verona, and I found that hard to believe. So and we have a lot of new people in town. So I just wanted to give a brief shout out to the Lions Club. Many people associate Lions Club with projects to improve, to help the blind, to restore eyesight, etc. And while the Lions Club is known for that, in Verona, we've done much more than that. We've awarded $6,000 every year to local high school seniors. Not for academic achievement, but for their service to the community. And they're currently accepting applications now. And the people who are running that are coordinating it with the folks at the high school. We also run a hospital equipment closet with the cooperation of the town, generously giving us some space. This has been a very popular service that the club has provided. Wheelchairs, walkers, hospital beds. You can find about all of this on our website, www.lionsclubveronanj.org. We've got a lot of great support in the past, and we were hoping to get that level of support again. The other things that we've done here also is we have built 2 bus shelters, you're probably aware, one in front of the park, one down a little further, and they've coordinated with the Girl Scout troops, I believe, in terms of there's been a couple of little free libraries put up next to them. So all of the money that you use is going for things in Verona, and also it's tax deductible. And hopefully, if you haven't gotten your your letter in the mail, you'll take a look at the website and see if you can, donate, generously. Thanks for your time. And just a quick comment on Linden Avenue, putting another hat on, and also on the ball field. Some people still think I'm on the council. I mean, some people incredibly still think I'm the mayor. So, and I do live not too far from Everett Field. And I've gotten some comments and complaints about these light spillage. I don't know whether, hopefully, in listening to the presentation, the new lighting that Nagley is proposing will cut down on the spillage, particularly on Elmwood, obviously, and Westview. I'm sure the deputy mayor may have heard some comments since he was postponed out as well. No, we haven't heard any time, sure. But just remember that. And also on Linden, I know this wasn't the purpose of the meeting tonight, but there's serious water issues, leakage issues on Linden in certain areas. And it popped up a lot this winter with icing conditions. So hopefully, maybe it's a question that you could answer, Mr. O'Sullivan, if when we get to the final, stages of this thing, I realize Linden's going to be repaid, et cetera, that we make sure that we try to coordinate any repairs of the water issues with the repaving, because sadly Linden was resurfaced not that long ago, and unfortunately, it's all chewed up. So I just please keep that in mind when you develop your final plan. Thank you for the opportunity to come.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan.
Very good.
And everybody else, first time I've ever been in a time.
Lisa Loud, 18 Oak Ridge Road. I just wanted to say thank you to you guys for the last couple of years when we've been working on the proposal. But we've had a lot of changes, a lot of back and forth. I think that we've worked very well in trying to, as committee in the background, the BSL, the Shade Commission, the Environmental Commission, we all came together and sort of helped, came to a conclusion all those things. A lot of give and take, a lot of give and take. And I think that's a result from you guys behind the scenes. I'm really excited to see this happen from our standpoint of baseball and softball. I'm excited to see it happen. But more importantly, from somebody who's lived in the community for 23 years, I think this is more about community than it is about baseball and softball. So I'm just excited to see this go underway, and I want to thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. We worked on this from I appreciate, and I'm going to say I can't wait to see this happen. Can't wait to see you all at Open India next year. I appreciate you all here this year. It really is about community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi everyone, I'm Christine Bartolo, Verona. And first of all, you all thanks many people, but thank you guys for doing what you do. So I have not lived here for 23 years, I've lived here for 10, but just two observations in terms of the support of Everett. One is just kind of from a planning perspective. So we go through Montclair, right? That's kind of the thoroughfare that we take. And first thing that you see when you enter into Verona is Everett. You go through downtown Montclair, you pass an art museum, you pass a Whole Foods, you pass these beautiful houses, these beautiful spaces, and you see Everett. So it's a little bit of a misrepresentation of the town. So we can probably make that a little bit more appealing. And then the second thing is in the past 10 years that I've been here, this is very much about community and connections and memories. And I did not grow up here. I grew up in a different town, but I played pretty much my entire life. And I just remember so much, and I remember the honking of when we were in All Stars, we would go through the town and we would honk our horns saying we won games, right? And a lot of that is just that kind of camaraderie. And I hope that you guys, despite all of these conflicting feelings, thank you so much.
Well, so seeing no further comments, I'll close public comments. Mr. Sullivan, I know Mr. Petrangeli said a lot at the period of time, if you wouldn't mind following up with him, it would be good to get into depth on him, as that is his professional area of expertise, certainly. It's good to do everything right the first time. To former Mayor Ryan, good to see you here. I did get my appeal letter on the same day that I got the fire department and the rescue squad, so that was interesting. We may want to think about that in upcoming years as far as timing those out. That might be good for all the organizations. I did not get the library foundation letter the same time, but and I think the PBA's was a different piece, but they all just happened to come in my mail the same day. So interesting thing. But thank you for your comments and for all of your work, and I do hope everybody supports you. And to Christy and Lisa, I agree with you 100% that this is an item for the community. I don't have kids, and certainly don't obviously have kids in baseball and softball programs, but the 15 years that I've lived in Verona, I've walked by that Everett Field with my dog 5,000 times at this point. And I can tell you that has been on my list of things I've wanted to get done for 15 years. It did not go obsolete in the last year. It went obsolete well prior to my moving into town. And I'm glad that not only could we fix this for the sports, but also provide a playground facility there, which is something that I've wanted to do for a number of years as well. And I do think that it will add and enhance the charm of Verona, and 100% I think. But as out on the campaign trail talking to people about the field, I would say that's basically the first big item that you see. And it was really not representing our recreational programs well when you look at the beautiful fields that we have around town, even in the schools. So I look forward to voting on the final bond for this and putting my shovel in the dirt and getting this ready to go. That'll be a big day. The guy still have the white helmet at home to do our shovel moving. We may have a shovel too, but I'll bring everything just in case. Any other responses to Jeff?
Yeah, a couple, just to Mr. Petrangeli, he's not here, but he talked about Elmwood parking on one, there's already parking on one side of Elmwood.
He was looking for more signage.
Got it. And then the other thing I was thinking, moving forward, actually before maybe next year we finished Everett, to reverse parking on Westview. So it's on the westbound side of Westview, because then there's no driveways going up the whole length of Everfield, and we can stripe that. We can get probably quite a few more spots on that right side going down Westview. And now that we have a walkway at the bottom, people can walk down and get onto the field that way. So we can look into that in the future. To Mr. Ryan, former mayor, I know when we redo ball fields, the lighting is so much better that you do not get, that's what I was shaking my head for. We do not get spillover. It came up when we did the high school lights. People were complaining about the height. They were too high, we should lower them. I know they're too low, that's when you get spillover. So we'll look into that when we do this. They should be less light pollution to the neighbors. And Lisa, thank you very much for all you do, and all the time you put into the BBSL and everybody else and all the coaches. This town owes you a lot for what you do and all the time you put into it. I do know, and thank you for the invitation to open today. I think it's always fun. And the two people you honored this year are just lovely women that gave a lot to this town. And that was a very good ceremony, a very good tribute to all of them. And that's all I have.
All right, we are going to move on to the introduction of an ordinance. The next item on the agenda is ordinance labeled I-1, Madam Clerk, read the title of this ordinance in July.
An ordinance to amend Chapter A 565-1 fees of the Code of the Township of Verona by amending plenary retail distribution license fees.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would somebody move the ordinance?
So moved.
Motion's made by Councilwoman McGrath. Is there a second?
Okay.
Second's made by Councilwoman Holland. Is there any council discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes. Yep.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy.
Yeah.
Mayor Tamboro.
Yes.
Mayor, I-1 will be number 2025-09. It was introduced at a vote 5-0. It will be published according to law, and a public hearing will be held on May 5th.
Next up is the consent agenda. Would somebody please move us the consent agenda? There's no minutes, but resolutions L1 through L. Motion is made by the deputy mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second is made by Councilwoman Holland. This time I'll open for public comment on the consent agenda only. The same public comment statement applies. Seeing no public comment, I will open the council discussion. I just have a couple items. First, I would like to, so this does not get lost in the consent agenda, but I would like to thank the Friends of Kenny Brown for thinking of the township for the memorial donation. And from what I learned about Kenny in the last couple of weeks, he's really quite a gentleman and a representation of finest that Verona has produced. And I'm glad that we're able to recognize him in perpetuity in the town. So Mr. Oswald and I look forward to seeing where that bench is going to go. As the historian in the room, I am thrilled that we will be voting to support Revolution NJ, the 250th anniversary of the United States. When the clerk brought that to me, I was just really happy about that. And I'm hoping that we can come up with some really good programming. And I'm of course happy to volunteer to assist with that. I will get my tricorn hat out. And yes, I have one. And we will get working on that. And I do want to draw the public's attention to our Verona annex of the Essex County Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is a really important piece of our emergency planning, and it's a great overview of not only the how we plan for disasters, but also the concerns that we have within the township over some of the hazards that are presented to us. So I encourage everybody to read the document. It's a very interesting document, and it does help to point out the challenges we face. Any other council discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I want to also make a comment on L11, the donation from the Kenny Brown Memorial Fund. First, a couple of whereases at the bottom. The Memorial Fund is the Kenny Brown Memorial Fund, so just for a legal purpose. There's 3 changes there if we could make them. I actually graduated Verona High School with Kenny Brown. He was a student that everybody, even classmates, looked up. This tells you a little bit about him in the resolution, but it doesn't tell you really everything about him. He was a straight A student. He was the leader of the class for 5 years and then council president for 1. It was not a misprint. He was 7th and 8th grade, and then freshman, sophomore, and junior year, president of the class. And he was just such an individual that was a motivator. And even after college, you talk to him, he did so much. He was always someone who would sit and talk with you and really get into a conversation and get to know you. He was someone that everybody looked up to. I mean, in high school, he was lettered in 3 sports for all 4 seasons, which I think is a pretty tough feat for an average person to do. And he was great about that. So I want to thank the town for doing this and with it well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I do just want to note, and I'm looking through this now, that our numbering is off in the packet.
I know there is no number 10. I must have just hit it hard enter. Sorry.
Just want to make sure there's not something like not on the agenda.
Yes, I understand.
Councilman?
Yes, I also want to acknowledge the donation from the Kenny Brown Memorial Fund. I think it's lovely that we would be having a bench at every field. And I mentioned it earlier. I think it's a lovely addition to the field, and so I really just want to thank them for that. I also want to acknowledge item L1, which is the iBank resolution for a declarage pump station. This is really important. It is something that we've been working on also for a number of years. It helps to mitigate some risks for a lot of our residents. It contributes to improving water pressure for those two large buildings. And doing it through the iBank is just really makes a lot of sense for our community. So I'm grateful again that the administration has leveraged the New Jersey iBank. It was something that we weren't doing before I got here, but I'm glad that we've been able to make that change. And this is another great project that we can be funding through that mechanism. Also, I too want to acknowledge item L3, the Essex County Hazardous Mitigation Plan. There's a lot of discussion in that about our flooding risk. It's something that we've been addressing for a number of years. As many residents will recall, we did have a very significant flash flooding event in 2018, and then that was followed very shortly thereafter in 2021 when we sustained massive flooding in the community associated with Hurricane Ida. This does prevent a very significant problem for our community. Sometimes, even we have a river that kind of cuts our town in half. So, it has inundated some of the bridges and created significant hazards and massive property damage for our community. So, looking at this hazard mitigation plan and some of the stormwater infrastructure upgrades that we've done and that we have plans to do going forward, it's very important for our community. I do want to acknowledge that there's a lot of stuff in here and we do not have an inexhaustible capital budget, but I do appreciate that efforts are being made. And I also look forward to seeing that capital improvement plan. Last but not least, I want to acknowledge the resolution to amend the pool rules to extend the hours of family night and to clarify the dates during which there is family night. It was at a resident's request that we would extend family nights from 4 p.m. to now starting at 3 p.m. So I appreciate the administration hearing that resident and making that correction for that hour. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamburo.
Yes.
Mayor, resolutions L1 through L9 and L11 through 15 will be numbered 082 through and including 095, and they pass at a vote 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to new unfinished business. The first item is discussion on ordinance to amend the township code to establish attendance participation requirements for members of township boards, committees, and commissions. This is something we had discussed a while back, and it got put on the back burner. Glad to see it's back on the agenda. I've been thinking straight from our attorney for bringing this. I think it is an important component to have in order to provide not only expectations for our members of our committees of providing a vital service to the township, but also a procedure that in case people are not providing the service that they signed up to, that the township can fill those roles with people who are willing to step into those shoes and be active members. Just for the public edification, we are looking at a revised version that came out today that didn't really change the substance of the ordinance, but reformatted it a bit from some recommendations from Councilwoman Holland, and I appreciate you providing those, Councilwoman. I am fine with this being moved to adoption at the next meeting. Councilman McGrath?
Thank you, Mayor. And just for the public's edification, this was something that you're asked to put back on the agenda at our last meeting. I do have concerns. I have a couple of concerns. I think that this threshold of 70% of the meetings will be too hard for some volunteers to meet. Just because life just gets in the way at times. People are working jobs, they have commitments with their kids. And I do think that the overwhelming majority of our volunteers are very well-meaning. And I'm a little unclear what problem we're actually trying to solve. So what I would like to see for me to get comfortable moving forward is for us to survey our chairs of our boards and commissions and advisory commissions to ask them their input on an attendance policy and current attendance concerns they may have now. In addition, on some of my boards and committees, we do have some people who are facing some pretty significant medical challenges. And again, I do feel that this puts a lot of burden on those individuals when they're really undergoing a trying time. So I want to understand how we're going to navigate some of those medical issues. And in addition, how we're going to track all of this. So I would like from the administration a summary on how this is going to be tracked and enforced from their point of view, like the detail. But really kind of stepping back, our issues with attendance, I think, are very rare. What's also rare are some very upsetting issues that have happened with harassment and intimidation, but they do happen from time to time. So what I would like to see is, instead of just focusing on attendance, thinking a little bit more broadly about a code of conduct for volunteers. And again, I don't want it to be very onerous, but I think we do need to state very clearly for volunteers that they should treat everybody with respect and that they shouldn't discriminate against anyone due to race, religion, sexual orientation, et cetera, and that we have, certain expectations that they're going to be prepared, that they're going to communicate with their chairs, whatever it may be. And in there we can say, and we expect that you attend meetings. I would be comfortable with a 50% threshold or 3 consecutive meetings. I think 70% is just too much for the average Verona, and especially the average Verona parent and retirees who, have very active lives as well. So I'm not ready to move forward on this. I think we need to do a little bit more talking with our chairs to make sure that we are not missing anything. I know I took the last draft of this ordinance and sent it to my committees. I have to tell you, I didn't really get a lot of positive feedback. I think people feel that this is a little, they're giving to the town, and the 70% threshold is just something that I think most volunteers are going to be concerned they're not going to be able to meet. And again, if our committees are fully staffed or volunteered, we shouldn't have any issues making quorum. So that's my feedback. I would like to see some more work done on this. So.
Yes, I had a couple other questions with this. Just a notification process here. If a member has not shown up, it says we're in writing to the 20-party council, mayor, manager. I also think that municipal clerk, outside of contacting that board member, should also we should have in here contact the chair of the committee or board, and also the secretary of the board. My one thing on here that I always thought of was, I'm going to go back to meetings I was attending back in 2012 and 13. Any land use board could have an application that could last 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 meetings. If someone on that board has a conflict and that's the only meeting for 3 or 4 meetings, then they're obviously recusing themselves. We're actually, by doing this, making them come to the meeting, just recuse themselves and then leave when it's not just assumed after the first meeting. So it's kind of, I'm not going to say, it's basically a waste of their time. I thought of that, but then it actually says in here, it's to the discretion of the council, so if that came before us. And that board member said, you know, I recuse myself, I think I'd have to come for the next 4 meetings and do it again. I would be okay with that and not, obviously remove him from the board, so I do think there's some wiggle room here as far as, the decision and who makes it. But, you know, as long as we're reasonable people about, you know, their attendance and, you know, an excuse for, there was a one of the boards where a member got hit by a car and was out for a year. So obviously that's someone we wouldn't kick off the board when they're ready to return. But the flip side of that is it does put, especially on a land use board, a burden on all the other members. It could be applicants might not have a quorum for a meeting. So there's a balance there. So we really have to put it through our process of whether the deciding group or if it's the manager, you know, or just the mayor, then it's got to be a reasonable decision. So I do think it is written in here that I think it's up to the decision and the reasonable people that will make that decision. So that's all.
Mr. Lawyer, as far as the land use boards, this doesn't apply to land use boards, right? Because that's under state law.
To the extent it's in conflict, it would not apply to land use boards, but land use boards kind of go through a very similar process as well. It's the same kind of hearing.
I think there's a due process component in here, and I think it's a little alarmist to suggest that we just be removing people if they have medical issues and you're going to give people due process. You're going to hear from people if they have a reasonable concern as to why they haven't been at meetings, but we need people at the meeting. And 50% is just not enough. Asking people to attend half the meetings of a board that they've signed on to be is simply not a good expectation. If you only attended half of school, you wouldn't pass it. We attend our meetings and we don't say, okay, council members only attend half the meetings and that's it. When people sign up to be on boards and committees and we appoint them, we're offering to the entire public our trust in individuals that they will be there and be able to provide. You know, one of the comments that I got back from several board chairs and board committee members was a feeling that when people were missing, then they had to be caught up at the next meeting. So I remember a council meeting that we had in the fall where one of our council members was absent. We had a discussion and we spent probably 15 minutes going over things that we had already discussed in a past council meeting because of that. And I know how frustrating that can be. So I think at this point, we do need to move forward, and it does provide the discretion. You can't account for every item, but if somebody, you know, had a medical problem, that's fine. Obviously, I think the due process would be allowed and they would be allowed to continue on. But at the same point, if somebody's medical conditions can prevent them from, you know, actively serving on a board, there needs to be a reasonable decision between the appointing authority and that individual on whether it is right for them to continue, knowing that they may not be available to serve the town, especially if it's causing a quorum issue. As we're trying to like very active volunteers in Verona, it's really important that we have space if people are not meeting their obligations, that we have space for people who are going to be energetically involved in committees to step on. So I'm perfectly okay with being on the next meeting. I'll call for the next team. Councilman Holland?
Yes, so thank you for recognizing me. First of all, I'm intrigued by some of the conversation that's been had this evening about this draft ordinance. I will say that I did introduce some changes and I had actually circulated those changes back in September of last year, and they weren't incorporated into the draft until this afternoon. They were more than just procedural or formatting changes. They were actually substantive and they were intended to insert some of the due process into this draft ordinance that was lacking previously, in particular opportunities for when there was notification given for committee members to have that opportunity to be heard. I do still think that, and again, those were edits that I had circulated back in September. You know, looking at the draft ordinance now, I do still think that it, even if you wanted to introduce it just as an attendance ordinance, it still requires additional clarity. There's discussion about if the appointing authority determines that the factual circumstances excuse the absences is very squishy, and it presents an opportunity for there to be either preferential or discriminatory treatment. Like, is there actually a definition of what is an excused absence, and how are our board and committee members going to be treated? It sounds like there are certain instances where people have understood and have excused it, and that makes a lot of sense. But, is that going to be consistently done across councils, across, years, especially if this is memorialized in an ordinance? To the extent that there's a concern about attendance, I actually think that the recommendation to survey our current boards and committees now in the spring, so second quarter of 2025, because we did adopt ordinances amending the quorum requirements and expanding boards and committees. So, for example, the Recreation Advisory Committee did on occasion have challenges, at least on one occasion, with meeting quorum, actually a couple of occasions meeting quorum. But we've now expanded that committee and we've changed the quorum requirements. So it's actually no longer an issue, or I haven't seen it be an issue. So I'd be really curious what that committee had to say about whether or not they still had the need for the attendance policy ordinance as currently structured, and as part of this discussion, or whether we've actually mitigated that risk, or addressed that concern. In addition, I am really curious about the amount of administration's time and hours that would go into tracking all of this. So I think that's actually a really worthwhile thing to get feedback on from the administration, like how much of your time would go into this notice requirement and the tracking, and how you would get that data. Like, would that require you chasing after like board chairs or the like? I don't know how that's currently done. And also, the question about whether this should be part of a larger policy for decorum on our boards and committees. And the conduct of boards and committees, I think, is also intriguing. Like, are we really missing the forest for the trees if we're hyper-focusing just on attendance, but we're not actually holding boards and committees to the same standards that we hold the general public to? I mean, we have ordinances about decorum at meetings, and we have expectations for the public associated with that and how people would conduct themselves. And we have had instances where there have been shouting and obscenities at board and committee meetings, but there weren't any necessarily policies to hold those residents accountable for that bad behavior. So if we are going to implement policies and we're going to memorialize them, codify them into our code, I think, the idea that you would expand it to talk more generally about decorum and the conduct of our meetings makes a lot of sense. So I do appreciate that. I do think there's more work that needs to be done here. I don't think that my edits from September addressed all of the concerns. Again, looking at it more this afternoon after Mr. Aloya incorporated my prior edits, I do continue to have concerns. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to move forward at the next meeting. I would absolutely love to hear from those committee chairs about whether or not we've already addressed this concern. Thank you.
I mean, just a quick thought on this, as far as how we track everything. All boards and committees submit minutes, do they not? And the attendance is at the beginning of all our meetings. I think that would be a fairly simple thing to track.
I agree.
Councilman.
Great. I just want to say two things in response. Yes, the attendance is in the minutes. I've served, a lot of different boards and committees. It's been great to rotate. The minutes don't always get passed at the next meeting. And again, they're volunteers, and sometimes they forget to vote on them, or sometimes they're not written up. And so things do lag behind. So I am definitely concerned about administration, especially at the 70% level. I'm just going to say in response, volunteer management. I've managed a lot of groups for 14 years. I have the most experience of anyone on this council managing volunteers. I think the way this is written it doesn't matter if the words are correct. it is giving off the wrong sentiment and vibe. I think I definitely agree with you, Mayor, and everyone on this council. We want to have engaged volunteers. This is not how we get there. So I would love to have an offline conversation on kind of that broader perspective on volunteer management. We have struggled with recruitment. I don't think this is going to help. That is my opinion. I think we've raised a lot of good, interesting questions and thoughts to consider. And I am more than happy to have offline conversations with you, Mayor, directly with any chairperson of any board and committee that I'm not sitting on or them sitting on, about, talking about this further, but also really looking towards, again, a broader code of conduct. And I'm sure there's lots of great examples from other communities because they're already doing it. So, those are my thoughts. So, I hope we can continue the conversation and be productive and really listen to our volunteers, and our volunteer leaders, as we move forward. Thank you.
I'm going to respond to that. As somebody who's managed volunteers for over a quarter of a century, and thousands over the years, especially in emergency services, which I've been doing since I was 19, and other volunteer organizations prior to that. So I think the Councilwoman's suggestion that she has the most experience managing volunteers is incorrect. But secondly, I think the reason I bring up my EMS management is I've operated in 4 or 5 all volunteer organizations that have been trusted by the public to provide a necessary service. Every single organization that I've been part of that has done that, despite being reliant on volunteer labor and only volunteer labor, has had standards for attendance participation. In fact, having those standards for attendance participation actually increases morale and ensures that the people who are doing work don't feel like other people in the organization are doing less and still getting the same benefit as you on that. So every organization I've been part of as a volunteer, and every organization I've managed as a volunteer has had standards for participation, and standards for how to continue bringing that piece. We have a greater thing to look at. I'm starting to feel concerned that some of my council colleagues are looking at board and committee appointment as an entitlement. It's not. It's a position that we hold people, that we appoint people to fulfill a need for the township. I mean, somebody only come to half the meetings is just something not acceptable. And in any world, if somebody showed up at half their job, that's unacceptable. Most of the meetings that these boards and committees have, with the exception of land use boards, are on Zoom, and they're accessible from anywhere at any time. So I feel like some of the comments being brought up are moves to slow walk an ordinance that is necessary. I feel like we can address a code of conduct piece. We do have township policies that talk about that are promulgated by the manager already. That talk about behavior for any township volunteer and staff member. They're already out there. The manager puts forth. So we have those that would apply. As far as if we need to legislate that later, absolutely. This is the first I've heard from any council member wanting to add that to this ordinance. I don't think we're talking about, I think that's a separate item, a larger conversation. But I think a lot of the concerns brought up are things that are easy administrative fixes. And as far as how do you report attendance, it could be a simple Google form if the if the meeting piece doesn't go through. And I think our board and committee chairs would be happy to do that if that's part of their responsibility. Obviously, I'm happy to talk to our committee chairs and stuff, but there's also been 7 months between the first time that we discussed this and this recent time, and I haven't seen that suggestion before. And I feel like now this is just, I feel like it's a slow walk. I think it's something that we need to do. And I don't think it sends the wrong message. I think it sends the message that we want people, when they're going to participate on something that is vital for the township, in making recommendations to the council, that they are there all the time. Because frankly, I want to know when I appoint these to a committee that they are going to be present And that the recommendation coming from that committee to the council, which is what these organizations should be doing, or these groups, is representative of the people that we've actually appointed that committee instead of a small group. So, at this point, I feel like we need to move forward, and I think everybody's made their points, but I don't want this to go to the wayside. So if I'm gonna call for a vote on this ordinance at the next meeting, and the council wants to vote that down, that's fine, but if the council approves it, we approve it. And any other ordinances anybody would like to suggest, certainly you have the right and the ability to talk to the township manager and the township attorney and request assistance in preparing an ordinance related to conduct or anything like that, because frankly, I would be happy to review one of those ordinances, and it would have been nice to have in front of us for this meeting. Yes, Councilman.
Well, to the extent that we're talking about just minor fixes to things, to the extent that this is identified as an ordinance to establish attendance and participation requirements, could Mr. Aloya add a section that discusses how participation must be in compliance with all of the Verona policies? Or, I mean, this pretty large policy manual, but it has been represented previously that notwithstanding some of those policies referencing volunteers, that they are not in receipt of those policies and they are not bound by them. And that has presented itself as a problem. And so I think there's an opportunity to add that language to this before it's introduced.
I think that's a reasonable suggestion.
And I suspect the various volunteer organizations that you've been a part of did have codes of conduct as well.
Of course we do.
Yeah. So I think it's worthwhile to have a code of conduct incorporated into this if we're going to be focusing so much on attendance. And therefore, it should not then be limited when we talk about notification and hearings and things to that effect to just attendance violations. It would also be these code of conduct violations.
Yeah, I think a line in there, Brian. I think
It's probably more than a line because you'd have to do some other tweets where you're referencing attendance.
I think that's always applied to the members of the committees. I think at this point, simply putting it in the ordinance is worthwhile if we're going to do that. Good. Next up, for new unfinished business is an appointment for the Municipal Alliance Committee for Verona McKell for a term ending 12/31/2025. I am going to move this appointment. Is there a second?
Second it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro,
Yes.
Mayor, the appointment passes 5-0.
Thank you, and I thank Ms. McTell for volunteering. She previously was a student representative on our Multicultural Inclusion Accessibility Advisory Committee. And is an active member of the community. I'm particularly proud of her as her community governance chair. Providing an official role. I know that she will be absolutely working this committee. This time, is there any other new business?
I have one, Deputy Mayor, anything, just an update on something? Since someone who just walked in the room, a light bulb went off my head. Where are we and have we started to move forward with the update of our zoning?
Can I defer to our town planner while she is
She would like
here?
to.
Sam?
Sorry to put you on the spot so quickly. as you're walking the room.
That's fine. I've been in worse situations than this. So as you all know that we've worked on the TC ordinance, and then that got sort of stalled, if you will, because we had affordable housing and the other things going on. A few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got a call from our attorney. He wanted me to do some research into window clarity, which we did. So from our end, it's just the reason why we didn't go ahead with the TC zone ordinance to have it at, introduction stage, or et cetera, was mainly because of the affordable housing, so that there is no inconsistency. But from our end, the work, substantial portion of the work has been done. Does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor?
And do we have a time frame? I mean, are we
Yeah.
moving
Yeah,
on this anytime soon?
June-ish.
Okay, all right.
So,
Sorry. Councilman McGrath?
yes, so if I may, so we're going to finish the housing plan.
Yes.
And then it's most appropriate just to make sure I's are dotted and T's crossed,
That is
then
correct.
introduce any sort of zoning, and we were working on the TC zone, but we may need to or consider. We'll move to other
Yeah,
zones
that'll be-
after, but the TC zone will be ready to go.
Yes, it was ready to go a few months ago,
Right.
but then, DCA came up, yes.
So we all know what happened.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome.
All right, at this time I'll open for public comment on any item any member of the public wishes to council. Any public comment signifies. It's time.
Kevin Ryan, Verona, New Jersey. I have only myself to blame for this because I should have commented about this when you talked about the consent agenda. L4, I just have a question about that, the authorizing the professional services agreement for the issues related to the West Essex Highlands Development application in West Orange. If you could provide a little more background on that, as to the need for getting a special attorney, and maybe an update on that project. I have a vague familiarity with it. That would be appreciated. And just in listening to your discussion here, I do have some history related to this issue regarding committee appointments and so forth. I think and this is being said not to diminish the importance of any committee, but some of the committees in council can correct me if I'm wrong. I think are statutorily required for the town to have. Basically, the land use commissions, the planning board, the board of adjustment. They also have secretaries. Okay, so you're going to get an accurate report of attendance, at least from those committees. Having served as liaison to other committees, I do know they're not quite, and maybe it's changed, but they're not quite formally constructed as the statutorily required ones. So you might just want to take that into account when if you're trying to adopt a one-size-fits-all ordinance. You may need to, just look at that particular issue. In terms of we've had, there are statutory requirements on the planning board. When I sat there as a council representative, and now that I'm on the board of adjustment, there are statutory requirements, which if people don't show up, then you get into delaying schedules, you get projects pushed back. So you might want to be a little more stringent, if I can put it that way, when it comes down to the statutorily required committees, as opposed to ones that are more of a volunteer nature. While they are important, I'm not trying to diminish, I want to stress that the importance of any of the other committees or that we have here in the town, which may be unique to the town. But just take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roy, do you want to provide an update on L4?
Sure, so L4, the township has entered into an agreement with that law firm to go ahead and file an appeal of the permits that were given, because the permits were approved without following the updated stormwater management rules and regulations. And this is joined in with Roseland and Essex Fells. Correct. So it's a group appeal, meaning all three towns are splitting the costs.
Using the same attorney.
Using the same attorney, and we're hoping that it's successful, obviously, and the attorney has met with us and provided us with an indication that our appeal is colorable and has a great chance of success.
And to your point, Kevin, on the attendance piece, I think that's the easiest thing to solve is that we just formalize the attendance reporting procedures. And legally, every board and committee is supposed to provide their minutes in an appropriate period of time. And that I think they are doing that, but yeah, we can certainly, that's an easy process to change. Oh, sorry, Sean.
Yes, hi, Sean DiBartolo, Verona, New Jersey. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. go ahead.
Sean DiBartolo, Verona, New Jersey. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Getting back to the Everett Field plans that were presented at tonight's meeting, a couple things that I had thought of when we were seeing this presentation. I know the field house is a separate by others type of deal, but again, iterating the fact that there's a PA system, public announcement system in that concession stand and field house. And I think that's something that probably is not needed there, just as for the neighborhood and noise restrictions there. Green infrastructure considerations, there's a space between the parking lot and the field, which could be a good place for it. And I'm just curious whether or not Neglia had actually considered green infrastructure as per the stormwater ordinances to consider it. I know that it's probably a better use of stormwater management to have it done as a bioretention or rain garden rather than just doing an underground infiltration chamber. So that's something that I would have liked to hear from Neglia about a response on that. And then thirdly, the pervious pavement. I think Jack had mentioned it too during the presentation and the council's response about pervious pavement in both the driving lanes and the parking stalls. And as I recall, Jack and I had gone to the EPA Environmental Center in Edison, where they had a demonstration project where they demonstrated that the O&M of the operation and maintenance of these driving lanes, they get degraded a lot faster because there's more turning of wheels in the driving lane. So they wanted to have a little bit more robust pavement sections, which is why that it's usually that you see the pervious pavement sections designed in parking stalls. So I know they Neglia just was preferring just to have pervious pavement everywhere and just, I guess, at the throat where it comes in, but for regular pavement. But I would ask that they consider it still to keep it away from the driving lanes. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Any other public comments? Nope. At this time, I'll close public comments. We have made a motion previously. Careful movement to go to executive session. Any official action taken? Nope. All right, we'll see everybody in a couple weeks. Good night, Kevin.